The water is already moving. Right now, at this very moment, hydrothermal heat is seeping up through the floor of the deepest lake in America, and the rock underneath it is still warm. Most of the 670,000 people who walked the rim last year had no idea. None of them were told. Crater Lake holds 4.49 cubic miles of water. Not sitting on top of a mountain, sitting on top of a volcano, an active one. The caldera beneath it was born when Mount Mazama, a 12,000-foot peak in southern Oregon, did not simply erupt. It detonated. In a single afternoon 7,700 years ago, it threw 50 cubic kilometers of itself into the stratosphere, dropped ash on 8 states, 3 Canadian provinces, and left a chemical fingerprint that scientists would later pull from ice cores in Greenland. Then the summit collapsed inward. 3,500 vertical feet of mountain simply ceased to exist. What remained was an 8-kilometer hole. Cold water filled it over centuries, and the world forgot what was underneath. Last year, 670,000 people walked the rim of that hole and looked down. They photographed Wizard Island, the small volcanic cone rising from the lake's center, from tour boats. They were told the water is 1,949 feet deep. They were told the lake is the bluest in the United States. They were told almost nothing else. What they were not told is that the magma system beneath that lake is closer to the hull of their tour boat than the hull is to the shore. They were not told that the US Geological Survey has now installed its first dedicated seismic network inside the caldera, and that the seismometers have already begun speaking back. The official alert level is green. That detail is true. But here is the detail that the alert level does not explain. The last eruption at Crater Lake was not 7,700 years ago. It was 4,800 years ago. It happened underwater, on the east flank of Wizard Island, where magma pushed a lava dome out through the caldera floor in a slow, silent extrusion. That dome is now buried under 100 feet of sediment, submerged beneath 1,949 feet of cold, dark water. It has not moved since. But something else has. The new seismometers inside the caldera are recording earthquakes that have never been recorded before. Not because the earthquakes are new, but because until now nobody was listening. Zoom out for a moment. Picture the Pacific Northwest from above. Go past Portland. Go past Eugene. Cross the Cascade spine where Mount Hood, the Three Sisters, Newberry, and Shasta line up like vertebrae on the back of a buried animal. Stop in southern Oregon. There it is. A perfect circle punched into the forest. 6 miles wide. Brimful with the bluest water in the United States. From the rim, the caldera walls drop almost 4,000 feet to the lake surface. From the surface, the water plunges another 1,949 feet straight down. That is the deepest lake in this country. It is the 7th deepest on Earth. And the floor of that lake is the floor of an active volcano. This is what almost no visitor is told. Crater Lake is not a mountain lake. It is the throat of a sleeping volcano, and the only thing sitting between the surface and the magma below is a column of cold water. The USGS states it plainly. The climactic eruption of Mount Mazama was the largest explosive eruption in the Cascades in the last 1 million years, and one of the largest on Earth in the last 12,000. It was 40 to 50 times more powerful than the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens. Mount St. Helens ejected roughly 1.2 cubic kilometers of debris and killed 57 people. Mazama ejected 50. The ash blanket from that single event covered 900,000 square kilometers. 1 foot of ash settled 300 miles northeast of the crater. 6 inches blanketed eastern Washington. Trace fallout was preserved in Greenland ice. That is the actual scale of what this system is capable of. That is the ceiling. And the Klamath people knew. Their oral tradition describes Llao, the chief of the below world, sealed inside the mountain when Skell collapsed it on top of him and filled the pit with water. 380 generations of human beings passed that story down by mouth, across millennia, without writing, without maps. And when geologists finally mapped the caldera in the 20th century, they found that the story matched the geology to the meter. The eruption column, the pyroclastic flows tearing down every drainage on the mountain at over 200 miles an hour. The collapse, the water, all of it. 380 generations of memory. encoded in a story about a God-sealed underground. The Klamath people were not telling myth. They were keeping a record. Now the new monitoring network is keeping a different kind of record. And this is where the converging hazards begin to stack. First, the lake itself. 4.49 cubic miles of water sitting directly above the magma plumbing. The last eruption was a subaqueous lava dome. Magma met water, and there was no explosion that day, only a slow extrusion. But Charles R. Bacon, the USGS senior research geologist emeritus who spent his career mapping the caldera, has documented precisely what happens when that balance tips. When water and magma meet at shallow depth, the eruption turns phreatomagmatic. The water flashes instantly to steam. The explosive energy jumps by an order of magnitude. The column goes vertical. The radius of destruction expands in every direction at once. Second, the lahars. If a vent opens close enough to the rim to displace lake water, that water spills over the caldera wall and mobilizes the loose pyroclastic debris still draped across Mount Mazama's outer slopes. The same debris deposited 7,700 years ago. The mud flows channel down the drainages. They funnel toward Klamath Falls, toward Medford, toward the Rogue Valley. Lahars do not give warning. They move faster than people expect, and they do not stop. Third, hydrothermal explosions. The convective heat discharge from the floor of Crater Lake already ranks third largest in the entire Cascade Range, behind only Asa Hot Springs and Lassen. There are bacterial mats down there. Warm water pools already visible on sonar. A hydrothermal blast does not require fresh magma to reach the surface. It does not require a new eruption to kill people standing on the rim. The system is already pressurized. It is already venting. It has been for millennia. Fourth, the fault that almost nobody mentions. A north-south active tectonic fault zone cuts through the western half of Crater Lake National Park. A purely tectonic earthquake, magnitude 6 or larger with no volcanic component whatsoever, could drop a slab of rim wall into the lake. And a body of water nearly 2,000 feet deep does not absorb that impact quietly. It generates internal seiches and surface waves that propagate outward from the point of impact with enough force to affect anything near the lake's edge. The volcano does not need to erupt to cause catastrophe. The structure around it is already unstable enough. This is why the human exposure number matters so much. More than 712,000 Oregonians now live inside what is most accurately described as the prevailing ash drift footprint of the Crater Lake Caldera. Klamath County to the south. Jackson County to the southwest. Deschutes County to the north. Lake, Douglas, Crook, Jefferson, and the eastern half of Lane County. 712,419 people. None of whom were alive the last time it happened. None of whom have ever seen what this system does when it wakes up. Klamath Falls sits 56 miles south of the rim. 22,115 residents, directly on the southerly ash drift line. Medford is 80 miles to the southwest, with 63,154 residents. Bend is 102 miles north. It is the fastest growing city in Oregon, with 106,925 residents and more arriving every year, every one of them moving deeper into the fallout zone without knowing it. The Interstate 5 corridor west of the Cascades carries hundreds of thousands more through the prevailing wind zone every single day. Portland is 250 miles north. Seattle is 400. Both cities were buried under Mazama ash 7,700 years ago. Both were rebuilt directly on top of it. Combined, their metro areas now hold more than 4 million human beings living above the old ashfall, in cities that did not exist the last time this caldera spoke. Picture one of them, a Cleetwood Cove boat captain, late September of last year, tying up the last sailing of the 2025 season. The dock smells like wet pine. The water laps the stone 3 feet below his boots. He has spent the entire summer telling 670,000 visitors that the lake is calm, that the lake is beautiful, that the lake is 1,949 feet deep. He has not told them that he is standing on top of an active vent. He coils the line, flips the cleats, walks back to the truck. Behind him, Wizard Island is a black silhouette against the late sun. The Cleetwood Cove Trail closes for 3 years starting this season. By the time it reopens, the new seismic stations will have recorded thousands more small earthquakes beneath the lake floor. None of them will be declared unusual. All of them will be the first ones anyone has ever formally heard. What happens next is the part nobody can answer. The USGS has not declared volcanic unrest at Crater Lake. The alert level remains green, normal, baseline, no action required. There is no evacuation order. There is no emergency declaration. There is only a closed trail, a new monitoring network, and the longest gap of silence in this volcano's documented behavioral record. For 1,800 years. And counting. What the new seismometers are picking up could be background noise. It could be the regular, unremarkable breath of a hydrothermal system that has been quietly exhaling heat for millennia. Could mean nothing. Or it could be the first detectable motion in the opening of the next chapter of a story the Klamath people kept alive for 380 generations, because they understood something that 670,000 annual visitors do not. Llao does not need to wake all the way up. He only needs to twitch. So how long does the lake hold the lid? What does it look like the morning after a single Wizard Island vent reopens underwater? What happens to 4 million people downwind of a Cascade volcano that has been silent for nearly 5,000 years? A volcano that, the last time it spoke, produced the second largest eruption on Earth in the entire Holocene. The deepest lake in America is the cap on a magma system that already destroyed a 12,000-foot mountain in a single afternoon. The only thing maintaining the silence right now is a column of cold water and a green alert level on a government monitoring page. The seismometers are listening. The visitors are still photographing Wizard Island from the tour boats. And 450 meters below the surface, hot water is still seeping up through the caldera floor. The rock is still warm. And the story is still being told.